Okay, so we're going to start our Well Educated Wednesdays. Today we're going to talk about encouraging a foreign language at home. We are a couple minutes late to getting started because that's all I'm going to say about that. And so when we're talking about a foreign language, I had a question from some of the people in the community about how to get children to be encouraged to use a foreign language. So this particular scenario, one of the people that are part of the community was asking about their child being in foreign language classes or dual language programs since they were in first grade. And then now they're in about 8th or 7th grade, and they ask them to speak a foreign language, meaning, and the way that the scenario was is that someone is around and they say, oh, my child speaks a foreign language. And they're like, oh, let me have you say something in Spanish for me. And then the child gets upset. And so the reason why this is happening, I would say, is because the language is, in a way, a novelty. So it's not being used for a purpose for someone to be communicating with someone. It's just being used in a way that's a novelty, and so they're feeling like they're different or being treated in a certain way, and so then they're not feeling like they want to do it, and it's embarrassing. And we also don't know what somebody may have said to the child to make them feel uncomfortable or upset when they're doing the foreign language, and so that is a major problem. So a way to alleviate this is to make the foreign language a regular part of the family. And that means that you as a parent can be learning the language with them, and you could take them to restaurants and different things like that where they may be ordering the food or using their language for communication purposes. So that is very important. The other thing that you need to do is think about, as much as possible, how to integrate the language into the family life. So you can label different things and think about different scenarios in which you would have a conversation in Spanish with your child. You could even have them teach you some things, which would be a way to helping them to speak the foreign language. In addition to that, you can be watching TV or movies in that foreign language. And I recently discovered, because I was watching this show called Lupin, and I was really interested in it because it was on Netflix, and he was like a master of disguise. And so he kept changing up the way he was, looking with the different faces and color. Even skin color was changing. Lots of things were changing, and people didn't know who he was. He was a master of disguise. And it also was, tied to a book that he was reading that his father gave him when he was a child. So it was a lot of situations involved with it. So what I really want to be clear about is I was listening to this, watching and listening to this movie. It was in Spanish. And so it was in Spanish. And then what happened was I realized, and I was was watching the English subtitles, just reading it and watching it. And then at some point I realized that I actually could listen to it in English. And so it was also in French and other places, other languages. And so I was like, oh, this is so interesting. So, this is the same thing you could do with your child. It could be, looking on Netflix, looking on YouTube. There's different platforms that allow you to change up the language, and watching some of those shows in Spanish or a movie in Spanish could help encourage your child to embrace the foreign language and to use it, not just in school, but outside of school. Because I think at this point, it shows that the child really feels like, speaking Spanish is something they do at school, and it's not something that's integrated into the family, into the home. So really think about how you can match some of the things that are being done at school with home life to make sure it is a regular part of the learning. And regular, practical uses, not just school uses, but practical uses. Again, taking them to places in which they would be speaking that language and they would be using it, maybe interpreting things for the family, and then also teaching family members, because if the child has like 6 years of language, then they may be able to teach the family different things. That takes us to other types of media like music. There's lots of people that I've found that learned how to speak English by listening to music and things like that. So that is another media that you could use to help your child to learn. Right? And so having songs that are in Spanish or whatever that target language is, and listening to it on the radio, buying, streaming something. I was going to say something old school, like buying a CD or something like that. But, that could be done too if you're old school. And there's lots of resources for that. I always direct people towards free resources like the library or something like that. If you want books as well. And, they'll have books on tape. They'll have audiobooks in Spanish as well. So there is a world of opportunities and variety of choices as far as how to encourage your child and listen and actually using a foreign language. Also, I would talk about the practicality of it, right? There are job announcements out there that ask people to be bilingual, and pointing that out. And even there's like a pay bump for some certain jobs that require more than one language. And so letting your child know about that is important. Having them even talk to people who are bilingual. And in this case, the child is, like a different race than, people often associate. Like, so if the child is Black and they're speaking Spanish, people are maybe not used to that. I mean, of course, in the diaspora, there are lots and lots of Black people who speak Spanish. So finding some of those people that, speak Spanish that are, that look like them might be helpful. Maybe it's that issue they're thinking like it's something different than, what they are supposed to be doing culturally. I know when kids are in adolescence, sometimes they want to fall into like, well, people like me or whatever don't usually do this, or I'm too cool for that or whatever. So you kind of have to get to the root cause of it too. Try to ask them questions as you are trying to integrate yourself and the family into the language practice, because that will help your child to really, that you're embracing it as a family and using it as a family. And then asking them like, what's happening? Maybe someone has said something to them that made them feel weird. Maybe just putting them on display. They might feel like, not that you're just proud of them. Obviously a parent's proud, like, look what my child can do. And then, they're feeling upset or, embarrassed or something like that. And that's just like a normal part. Sometimes kids are embarrassed about things that we're not sure why. And it's important to honor that. And again, think about ways that they could use it in a very practical way. There's lots of games. As a family, you could use Duolingo, Lingo, or different apps like that to make sure that they know what to do and know how to do it. And so it's really important. Again, I must keep saying it, integrating the learning at home so that the child isn't feeling like this is something other and different from our family life. So that's really important. And again, try some of those videos and those shows. Of course, there is just like a Telemundo or just those different networks that offer work in Spanish, and then your television most likely will be able to give you English translation as well. So there's multiple ways to do it. And of course, maybe you won't want to do it all the time, but maybe twice a week, 3 times a week or something. You are listening to something in Spanish on the radio, streaming it. Of course, it may not be the radio, but you could just be streaming it. You could also be thinking about how to use it on videos that you might watch or stream. And it also could be books. So thinking about those 3 different forms of media, and even more than that is available, right? There's podcasts and all of that you can listen to or view in the Spanish language or whatever foreign language it is that you're talking to. I also want to point out that people obviously don't and I don't know where where you are in the country, but you may not be may not be calling it foreign language anymore, and they call it world languages. I know a lot of, in the past decade or so, a lot of terminology is shifting. I don't know, because, foreign has more of a negative connotation to it, I guess, and so they want to call it world languages. It is what it is. You don't want to be offensive to anyone, but, it's just what it is. It's, foreign language or whatever. So it's just, you just want to be really clear about, what they might call it, and, learn from your child, and make them, feel important about what they do, and make it practical, and maybe don't ask them to just perform, like speak it, and when you're not communicating with someone, and they don't have a way of communicating. So, maybe if they say something to them in Spanish, then they could respond, but just to tell them, speaking Spanish, or whatever may not make them feel good. But maybe eventually they'll be happy to do it if you get to the root cause of why they're feeling that way, and help them to feel better about really expressing themselves in Spanish or whatever the target language is that they're learning. Once they get into high school and college, they could even earn college credit for speaking the language. They could take AP courses. Of course, they could go into international business and just a variety of different career opportunities when they have more than one language and they're bilingual. So it's something that you really want to support, and you really want to cultivate, and, try to listen to them. But they just might be in a weird teenage age as well and not want to engage. But if it's something they've been doing all the time, then you really want to try to figure out what it is, and then try to honor what they're, why they're feeling the way that they're feeling. But, you really obviously are very proud of your child, and you should be, and, find ways to integrate that learning into the family so that they are really getting better at using that language, and they can feel confident with it. And, you could learn something in Spanish, and then they could help you with the pronunciation or different things like that. It is something that's really valued in my family, that people are bilingual. My grandfather is bilingual. He taught himself to speak Spanish by communicating with his coworkers, but also like going to the library back in the day, like when my mom was a child, and listening to the different records and all that kind of stuff. So he did that, and I did have a couple of cousins who are also bilingual. It's something that I didn't pursue as much as I wanted to, and there was also some limited courses for me when I was in high school, so it was something that I wasn't really able to pursue for 2 years, and then, it's something that I could have definitely taken more of interest in, and I really sometimes I'm going to learn a language, and then I get focused on something else. So, but it is something that has really a lot of power, and, it's really another example of your child's brilliance on display. So I really would encourage you to have your kids, learn Spanish. Thank you for joining us. And it's really important. It's not just Spanish, whatever that target language might be. It's really important. They would feel, so much, they'll be able to navigate more places when they go to different countries. And it's really a tool for life to help them, and, really expands it challenges their brain and helps them with their learning. So it's really something I really encourage fully. And so hopefully these tips will be of use for you. I would encourage you to try it and to keep working with your child and supporting them as they're learning about a language. Thank you again for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. And this is our Well Educated Wednesdays.